So Ramadan is all about sharing, and that does include friends and family. And who better to learn from than Chef Kuv himself? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Harry. Thank you for being here.
Of course. So tell us, what do you have for us today?
So we're looking at how to create appealing visual display for Ramadan. There's so many little factors that I think we can take into consideration, not that are not even involved, that are not even food involved. So how do you sort of go about them? How do we sort of set up the table? How do you sort of put certain elements? What are the elements? That's what we're looking at today.
So you have friends coming or family for iftar or suhoor. What's the first thing they should think of?
For the suppers, when people sort of turn up, because a lot of times it is people who've booked through our app, to book through Speedo. I don't always know who they're going to be, but at the same time, I exactly as you said, I have to think of them as my own friends and family. What would I want their experience to be like? What would I want them to look at as the first things when they sit at the table? What are the textures that they must interact with? That's those are the things that I sort of look into. For instance, using softer color palettes, softer textures. So softer things like this linen, for instance, like of course by touch it is quite soft, but even visually, like it's a lovely sort of pleasing effect on the eyes. Then things that are super Ramadan iconic. I think a table cannot be done without the lantern, right?
Yeah.
The Ramadan lantern. Then next, of course, I think we cannot do a supper or a Ramadan supper without dates. It has to be there. It's food of the kings, it's food of the humble, it's food of absolutely everyone. So my go-to is always subtle. It's natural objects, as many natural things, as many objects or little sort of items and accessories that are familiar to people. This is a little spice box. Like you see these spice boxes quite commonly if you go down to the waterfront markets and things. But but then once it's sort of placed here, it takes you to a memory of a bazaar, for instance.
Yeah.
But it's not too jarring. It's relatable. I only chose grapes for this table specifically because I thought it just goes with it's the same yellow. The yellow and green sort of match together. We choose different themes for different tables, of course, but this year for Ramadan, this is the theme that we're sticking to, the color theme. I think this has been consistent with all my Khariji tables and all the Ramadan tables. But if you just look at it and just sort of feel the texture as well, right? It just makes you.
It takes you back.
Takes you back. Earthy, right?
Yeah.
Like it gives you that sort of sense of grounding. That's the reason why I have like so textures. That's where you start. Like that's another sort of place to sort of start from. These things came to me from India, as it were. So this is super pretty, but they're also again sort of subtle, but they're super current with the theme in the Middle East, as it were.
One really interesting element of the table is you have books throughout. Can you talk to me a bit more about that?
Sure. With my food, with this experience, I intend to share knowledge, right? So again, is it possible for me to put that point across to the guests who I'm possibly going to meet for the first time? So books.
So what's a Chef Kuv pro tip on making sure that everyone has the exact same experience?
Well, it begins with what's their experience at the table itself? Are they comfortable? So are there comfortable seats available for them? Two, in their gaze. So if this is your sort of gaze, what are the items? What are the items that they can see? What are the items that are hopefully there shouldn't be items that obstruct their view. That's quite an important thing, so I will make sure that I sit on different seats on the table to see if everything is of the right height, and that they're able to look at everybody. How else would they be able to communicate, right? Unless there is an open sort of a space on the table.
I love that. And what is one secret element, one X factor, make or break situation to any dinner that you're throwing?
I would say fragrances. I really would say fragrances, and that's not only because we are in the Khalij, but I think just generally, because the suppers take place usually in the same place where we have kitchen close by, so it helps that really great smells are sort of wafted in from the kitchen. But apart from that, wherever sort of people sit, it's also necessary to ensure that There are only very subtle sort of fragrances that don't overwhelm their senses, whether it's visually or even through smell. That it's subtle fragrances that make people feel comfortable, make them feel at home, make them feel grounded.
Well, Chef Kuv, thank you so much, and I hope that everyone at home has learned something new. I know I sure have, and Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak, everyone.